Hey Ed, I'm making a video based on, I want to explain some ideas that I had. I kind of sat down and went through everything, and okay, let me just show you what I did. Okay, see if this is gonna work. Can you see this? Okay, so I just want to walk through what it is that we're trying to do here. Okay, the first thing that we're trying to do is we've got a road mesh segment, right? That's made up of vertices, and then we've got a road path, a bunch of road path control points, right? And I call them road path control points because I use the term road path continuously. Okay, so we've got these two things, and eventually we want to end up. That's what we start with. Okay, so what do we want to end up with? We want to end up with a mesh made up of the road segment meshes snapped together and bent so that the central axis lies on the road path and all other segment axes lie parallel to the central axis. Right? Okay, the road path I'm calling the entire path. So before, what we were doing is that we had two vertices. Let me see if I can open up the other one. This is really awkward. We had two vertices, and then I created a Hermite function that you've seen now, that just takes two vertices and gives you the path along that segment. Now I'm saying, well, fuck the segments, let's just think of it in terms of the whole path. All these points, they just lie on a path and they give you, they just define this entire path. Okay, anyway, okay, so you've got this one path, and that's what that path defines what the center axis line of the road segment meshes snapped together are going to bend into. And then the whole these things are running in parallel. I mean, that's going to become clearer just now. I mean, I've done a lot of work kind of clarifying what that even means. Okay. Observation 1. Every mesh segment vertice lies on a lengthwise axis parallel to the central axis. Okay, now this is kind of like the main observation. Like, if you look at it, like, every single vertice inside of the mesh segment, no matter where it can be defined as being on an axis that's parallel to the central axis. So the whole point of the way we're snapping these bits together, here you can see two segments, right? And we snap them, right, on a face. And what that does is that defines an axis. That defines this length axis. Because you snap one here, you snap one here, you snap one here, and then they all go along this line, right? And then you have all these vertices inside of here, and it's going to be in 3D as well. And all of those vertices lie on a parallel, and can be defined as lying on an axis parallel to the central axis, right? And the importance of defining it that way is, what do we mean when this bends? What do we mean? How is this going to bend? Right? And I think that the best way of describing how it's going to bend is that as this line bends, so do these parallel lines. The whole point of bending is that the parallel lines are preserved. That's how we describe it, and that's how we know how things bend. Now, and it's quite simple actually. So, okay, let's look at observation 2. Our goal is to have the central axis lie on the road path. Right? So this is what we're doing. We start out by defining that there's the central axis that goes through all of these segments. And now what we're trying to do is have the road path and and the central axis lie on top of each other, right? And when they do that, then we're golden. That's, at least, you know, we can talk later about what should these other lines do, but certainly the central axis must sit on the road path. That's what we mean by the road path. Like this mesh segment can be whatever it is, but as long as we've defined, as long as no matter what this mesh segment looks like, as long as we define a central axis that goes through it, then we can talk about having it lie on a path, a path that bends. Okay. Okay, that's observation 2. What's observation 3? Observation 3. The parallel axes, I don't know how to spell the plural of axis, remain parallel to the central axis, i.e. they are parallel to the road path, right? Now this is something that actually I think requires a little bit of investigation, a little bit more convincing than just saying it, but it's true. Like you know, these, if we make this guy sit here, I mean the whole point is that these lines remain parallel in bending, and I actually made this observation a bit later on. I think it's more important. These lines are parallel now, and when you bend this, it remains parallel. I mean, I actually think I made it a little bit clearer on a later observation. Let's see. Perpendicular lines. Where is it? Okay, it's kind of confusing. The parallel axis remains parallel. The parallel axes remain parallel. Where are we going? I mean, does this make sense to you? Or does this just seem intuitive but it's not that clear? Like, the parallel axes remain, the parallel axes remain parallel to the central axis in bending. Right? Now, I don't know, I mean, I guess this one needs a bit more work, but let's say that this is true. Let's say that we accept that. Actually, let me go through the further observations. Okay, this observation is interesting. Because of 3, assuming that these lines are parallel, even in bending, the tangent on the parallel axis at the point of intersecting a perpendicular line will equal the tangent on the central axis at the point of intersection. Okay, so this is the idea. Okay, this is our central axis, right? Here's a vertice sitting on it. You got this tangent coming off here. If we draw a perpendicular line through and it strikes the parallel axis, because these are parallel, this angle, this tangent will be the same. Right? That kind of makes sense. That's what the definition of parallel actually is, I think. The road path is defined as passing through the road path vertices and having tangents at the road path vertices of the road path vertice tangents. Okay, so it's just saying that there's two things. We've got these vertices and we have tangents coming off the vertices. And those together define this path. The path has to both go through these points, and the path tangents have to be equal to the tangents here. Right? That's how we're defining our road. Right? That's how we're defining the path of the road. And the path of the road is the same as the central axis. Okay, using 4 and 5, 4 is, we can define the parallel axis using the road path vertices, the road path vertice tangents perpendicular. Okay, so now what I'm saying is that we have the central axis here, and we have these points on the central axis, and we have this fact that the tangents are equal at these you know, through these perpendicular lines, we can actually get the tangents at these points here, and we can get the vertices at these points here, which means we can actually get the equation for this line, right? Now we actually can define this line, you know, so we actually can know. I mean, the whole point of this is to try to understand, you know, like what are we trying to do in the end? You know, well, what we're trying to do is, where's number 2 now? No, it's not what I want. I want, fuck. Too many windows. Okay. There it is. Okay. What do you want to end up with? Here we go. I mean, the whole point of this whole exercise is we're trying to figure out where to put all these vertices, right? Where do we put them? You know, if any of the vertices sit on the central axis, it's kind of easy. Well, not easy, but I mean, what about all these other guys? You know, where do all these vertices go? You know, like I said, we start with we just start with a road mesh made up of vertices, a single one, and then all these control points. Like, how do we decide on? So now we're going to have this. Now we're just going to copy this mesh about 5 or 6 times or whatever, as many as we need, and then each mesh we have to now move all of the mesh vertices. Right? It's not good enough just displacing the whole mesh and having all the vertices stay constant relative to each other. Right? That's not going to be good enough because the road segment mesh itself is going to bend. Right? So we have to decide on where to put all of the vertices for this, you know, for each one. You know, how do we decide that? It's like, well, this is the idea. The idea is that every single point on this mesh goes through an axis that's parallel to the central axis. The whole point is that this road path here just defines the line going through the center of this mesh. And now to know any point, any of these other points, I hope you can see the mouse, I don't know if you can, like to figure out where any of these other points are going to end up is just looking at the parallel line that goes parallel to the central axis, right? And then all of them are going to bend, all of them are going to remain parallel to each other. And if you can figure out the where along the central axis what a vertice must be that hits the central axis, and you can figure out all these other guys by just displacing across and perpendicularly. I'll make that point a little bit further on. Observation 7, 6, 7. Okay, observation 7. Only got a minute left before I can't record anymore. Okay, observation 7. Because of 1, and 1 I can't even remember what 1 is at. I'm running out of time. In order to know the position of any road mesh vertex, you need to know. You just need to know which parallel axis it lies on and how far along the axis you are. Right? So 1 just says. 1 says that every vertex is sitting on an axis that's parallel to the central axis. I mean, it's just another way of defining a vertex. You know, it's just, I mean, you know, the line parallel. There's infinitely many lines parallel to the central axis. You know, and every single point in the whole space, in the whole 3D space, is going to go through one line that's central. But it's just another way of defining it. Right? So if we know which line it's sitting on, we just need to know the displacement, you know, to hit that line, to the displacement along the line and what the path of that line is to define where the vertex lies. Okay, I'm running out of time. I'm going to email you these images, you know, and then, I don't know, see how you do, if you understand this. I'm going to see if, how good the quality of this video is that's now going to be uploaded. onto the internet for everyone to see. Cool.